The rain hadn't let up in 3 days, and Caroline Mitchell sat in the corner booth of Morrison's Cafe, watching water streak down the window like tears she'd forgotten how to cry. Her phone buzzed for the 15th time that hour. Another crisis at the office, another decision only she could make. She silenced it without looking. The coffee was bitter. She drank it anyway. Across the narrow aisle, a little girl with wild curls and rain-spotted sneakers was drawing on a napkin, while her father tried to coax her into eating her sandwich. The child couldn't have been more than 6. Her tongue stuck out in concentration as she worked. The man looked tired, not the exhausted kind that comes from late nights at the office, but the bone-deep weariness of someone who carried the weight of everything alone. Caroline knew that feeling. She'd built Mitchtech from nothing, turned code into capital, ideas into an empire worth hundreds of millions. She had 3 homes, none of which felt like home. She had 1,000 employees and no one to call when the silence got too loud. The little girl looked up suddenly, her eyes landing on Caroline with the unsettling directness only children possess. Caroline looked away, but she could feel those eyes still watching, studying, seeing something she didn't want seen. "Daddy, that lady looks sad," the child whispered, not quietly enough. "Hush, Mia, that's not polite." "But she does." The father's cheeks flushed. "I'm sorry," he said across the aisle. His voice low and genuine. "She doesn't mean anything by it." Caroline forced a professional smile, the one she used in board meetings. "It's fine, really." But Mia was still watching her with those enormous brown eyes. Her crayon paused mid-stroke. The child's gaze wasn't judgmental or curious in the way adults could be. It was simply noticing. And somehow, that made Caroline's chest tighten in a way no merger or acquisition ever had. She returned to her laptop, pretending to work, but the spreadsheet blurred. She was aware of the warmth of the cafe, the soft murmur of conversation, the normalcy of it all. This was what other people had. The casual afternoon with a child, the patience to let them finish drawing before finishing lunch. She traded all of that for corner offices and quarterly earnings reports. Some days, like today, she wondered if she'd chosen wrong. The father and daughter were gathering their things, putting on jackets, folding napkins. Caroline watched peripherally as they stood, as the man helped his daughter into a bright yellow raincoat that was slightly too big. They were leaving, and she would stay. And tomorrow would be exactly like today. Then Mia appeared at her elbow, small and sudden, holding something in her hands. "Excuse me," she said with the formal gravity children use when they've been taught manners. "You'll need this tonight." Before Caroline could respond, the child placed a small blue box on the table beside her coffee and darted back to her father, who was holding the door open, distracted by his phone. They were gone before Caroline could process what had happened, the bell above the door chiming their exit. She stared at the box. It was the kind you'd put earrings in, unremarkable except for the white ribbon tied around it and the folded note tucked underneath. Her name wasn't on it. There was no indication it was meant for her specifically, except that a 6-year-old had just handed it to her with absolute certainty. Caroline looked around the cafe. No one was watching. The barista was making an espresso. An elderly couple was sharing a scone. The rain continued its steady rhythm against the glass. She opened the note first. "You'll need this tonight. Please come." Mia and Daddy below was an address and a time. 6:30 p.m. Nothing else. Her hands trembled slightly as she lifted the lid of the box. Inside, nestled in white tissue paper, was a hand-drawn card. On the front, in crayon, was a picture of 3 stick figures, 2 tall, 1 small, holding hands under a rainbow. Inside, in careful block letters that clearly an adult had helped with, it read, "You are invited to the Riverside Elementary Bring a Grown-Up You Love night. Every kid needs someone. Tonight, Mia picks you." Caroline read it 3 times, then 4. The words didn't make sense. She didn't know these people. She'd never seen that child or her father before today. This had to be a mistake, some strange mix-up. A card meant for someone else that had ended up in her hands by accident. But the girl had looked right at her. had crossed the space between tables specifically to give her this, had said she'd need it. Caroline closed the box and put it in her purse. She paid for her coffee, left a generous tip, and walked out into the rain without her umbrella. By the time she reached her car, her hair was soaked and her silk blouse was ruined. She didn't care. The afternoon stretched long in her office on the 42nd floor. Caroline tried to focus on work, on the acquisition deal that needed her approval by Friday, on the presentation she was supposed to give to the board next week. But her hand kept reaching for her purse, for the blue box inside it, for the impossible invitation. She pulled it out at 3 o'clock, then again at 4. At 5:15, she finally called her assistant. "Amanda, I need to leave early today." There was a pause. Caroline Mitchell didn't leave early. She was usually the last one in the building. "Of course, is everything all right?" "Yes, I have somewhere I need to be." Only Riverside Elementary was in a part of town Caroline hadn't visited in years, maybe ever. The neighborhood was working class, the houses small but well kept, with chain-link fences and basketball hoops above garage doors. The school itself was a low brick building, with a faded mural of a tree painted on one wall, and bikes locked up near the entrance. Caroline sat in her Mercedes in the parking lot for 10 minutes, watching parents and grandparents and older siblings walk inside. They carried potluck dishes and wore jeans and spoke to each other like they did this all the time, like it was normal to spend a Thursday evening at an elementary school gym. She didn't belong here. These weren't her people. This wasn't her world. She almost left 3 times, but Mia's face kept appearing in her mind. Those serious brown eyes, the absolute conviction with which she'd said, "You'll need this tonight." Like she'd known something Caroline didn't. Like she'd seen past the tailored suit and the professional distance to something underneath that Caroline had tried very hard to bury. At 6:35, Caroline got out of the car and walked inside. The gym was decorated with streamers and student artwork, long tables set up with food and punch, children running between adults' legs while a sound system played pop music at a volume just under painful. It was chaos, colorful and loud and completely overwhelming. Caroline stood in the doorway, suddenly aware of how out of place she looked in her work clothes, her heels clicking on the gym floor. Several people glanced at her, curious but not unkind. She scanned the room, looking for a wild-haired little girl in a yellow raincoat. "You came." She turned. Mia stood beside her, wearing a pink dress with flowers on it and holding a paper plate with cookies. Her face lit up with a smile so genuine it almost hurt to see. I wasn't sure I was supposed to," Caroline admitted. "You were. I invited you." Mia took her hand with sticky fingers and tugged her forward. "Come on. You have to meet everybody." "Mia." "Wait." But the child was already pulling her across the gym toward the far corner where the man from the cafe stood talking to another parent. He saw them coming, and his expression shifted from confusion to recognition to something that might have been embarrassment or concern. He excused himself and walked toward them quickly. "Mia, what did you do?" His voice was gentle but firm. "I invited her. Like you said, we could invite whoever we wanted." "I meant someone you actually know, sweetheart. But I do know her. She was sad at the cafe, and she's still sad. Look at her eyes, Daddy." Caroline felt her cheeks burn. She started to back away. "I'm sorry, this was clearly a misunderstanding. I should go." The man caught her gaze and held it. Up close, she could see how young he was, early 30s probably, with dark hair that needed a cut and eyes that crinkled at the corners when he smiled, which he was doing now despite the awkwardness of the situation. "I'm Daniel Torres, and I'm really sorry if Mia put you in an uncomfortable position. She has this habit of trying to fix things." "Caroline Mitchell." She shook his hand, professional instinct kicking in. "And it's fine, I didn't understand what the invitation meant." "It's for the kids who don't have a mom to bring," Mia explained with the blunt honesty of children, "or whose mom can't come. My mommy lives in California with her new family, so Daddy usually comes and we pretend he's a mom too. But this year I wanted to bring someone else, someone who needed it." The words hung in the air between them. Caroline felt something crack open in her chest, some careful wall she'd built brick by brick over years of loneliness and professional achievement, and convincing herself she didn't need anyone. "Mia sees things," Daniel said quietly. "She's got this way of reading people. I've learned to trust it, even when it gets us into strange situations." He looked at Caroline with a directness that matched his daughter's. "You don't have to stay. But if you want to, you're welcome. No pressure." Caroline looked at Mia, who was watching her with hope written all over her small face. She looked at Daniel, who seemed tired but kind, worn down by single parenthood, but still standing. She looked at the gym full of ordinary people having an ordinary evening together, something she'd never had and never thought she wanted. "Okay," she heard herself say. "I'll stay." Mia's squeal of delight made several people turn and smile. The child grabbed her hand again and pulled her toward the food tables. "First we eat, then we do the scavenger hunt, then we play games. Then we make cards for our grown-ups. It's the best night ever." Daniel followed a step behind, and Caroline caught him watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Curiosity, maybe, or concern, or something else entirely. The evening unfolded in a series of small moments that Caroline knew she'd remember later, with strange clarity. Mia introducing her to teachers and classmates as "my friend Miss Caroline." Daniel bringing her punch and apologizing for how sweet it was. The scavenger hunt that sent them around the gym looking for items that started with each letter of the alphabet, Mia holding Caroline's hand the entire time, and chattering about school and her cat and her favorite books. There was a moment during the parent-child dance when Mia insisted Caroline join them, and Daniel met her eyes over his daughter's head with a sheepish smile that said, "I'm sorry, and thank you, and this is weird but also kinda nice," all at once. Caroline hadn't danced in years, hadn't let herself be silly or unguarded or present. But here in this gymnasium that smelled like floor wax and fruit punch, with a child's small hands in hers, and the quiet kindness of a stranger nearby, she felt something she'd almost forgotten existed. She felt seen, not as Caroline Mitchell, CEO, not as the woman in Forbes or the voice on earnings calls, but as a person, someone who could be sad in a cafe and noticed by a child, someone who could be invited to something simple and show up, someone who could belong, even temporarily, even to people she'd just met. During the card-making portion of the evening, Mia worked with intense focus, her tongue poking out again as she drew. Caroline sat beside her at the low table meant for elementary schoolers, her knees bumping the underside, completely out of her element and somehow okay with it. Daniel sat across from them, helping when Mia needed a word spelled or a particularly tricky cut made. He caught Caroline's eye a few times, and she noticed things she hadn't before. The calluses on his hands that suggested manual work, the faded logo on his shirt from some local business, the careful way he listened to his daughter like every word mattered. "What do you do?" Caroline asked during a lull when Mia ran off to get more glitter. "I'm a contractor, mostly residential, kitchen remodels, deck building, that kind of thing." "Do you like it?" He considered the question like it mattered. "Yeah, I do. It's good work, honest. I get to build things that last, help people make their houses into homes, and the hours are flexible enough that I can be there for Mia." He paused. "What about you? Mia said you looked important." Caroline laughed despite herself. "Did she? She has good instincts. I run a tech company, software development, mostly enterprise solutions." She heard how corporate she sounded and tried again. "I help businesses organize their data more efficiently." Is that satisfying? No one had asked her that in years. It used to be. Now it's just what I do. That sounds lonely. The observation was so gentle, so completely without judgment, that Caroline felt tears prick her eyes. She blinked them back quickly. "Sometimes it is." Mia returned then with enough glitter to decorate a parade float, and the moment passed. But Caroline felt something shift between her and Daniel. Some recognition of shared experience. They were both alone in different ways, both carrying weights that no one else could see. When the card was finished, Mia presented it to Caroline with ceremony. The front had her name in glitter, Caroline, surrounded by hearts and stars. Inside, in Mia's careful handwriting, it said, "Thank you for coming tonight. You made me happy. I hope you were happy too. Love, Mia." Caroline's throat closed. She held the card like it was made of glass. "This is the most beautiful thing anyone's ever given me." Mia beamed. "You can keep it forever and ever." "I will." In the evening wound down slowly. Parents and children began gathering their things, saying goodbyes, heading out into the parking lot. Caroline helped Mia pack up her artwork and collect her jacket, this small domestic task feeling both foreign and natural. Outside, the rain had finally stopped. The air was cool and clean, puddles reflecting the parking lot lights. Daniel walked them to Caroline's car, Mia between them, still chattering about the evening's highlights. At the Mercedes, Mia suddenly hugged Caroline around the waist, fierce and quick. "Will you come to my birthday party? It's in 3 weeks. Daddy makes the best cake." Caroline looked at Daniel helplessly. "Mia, Miss Caroline is very busy. She probably has a lot of important things to do." "Do you?" Mia looked up at her. Caroline thought about her calendar, packed with meetings and calls and obligations that felt increasingly hollow. She thought about her empty house, her curated life, her careful solitude. She thought about this strange evening, this impossible invitation, this child who'd seen her sadness across a cafe and decided to do something about it. "Not too busy for cake," she said. Mia squealed again and Daniel laughed, really laughed, the sound warm and surprised. "Okay then, I'll text you the details." He paused. "If that's all right?" Caroline pulled out her phone and they exchanged numbers. This exchange feeling weighted with more meaning than it should. She noticed the crack in his phone screen, the worn case. The background photo of Mia grinning gap-toothed at the camera. "Thank you," she said, "for letting me stay for this. Thank you for coming. Mia was right. You did need this tonight." Caroline drove home through quiet streets, Mia's card on the passenger seat beside her. Her house was dark when she arrived, exactly as she'd left it. But something had changed. The silence felt different now. Not permanent, not inevitable, just temporary. She put the card on her nightstand before bed, where she could see it first thing in the morning. 3 days later, Caroline was in a meeting when her phone buzzed. She glanced at it under the table, expecting another crisis. It was a photo from Daniel. Mia at a playground, covered in wood chips and grinning, with the text, "She insisted I send this to you. Says you need to see kids being kids. Fair warning, she's decided you're her person now." Caroline felt something warm spread through her chest. She excused herself from the meeting and stepped into the hallway to respond. "Tell her I'm honored and thank you for sharing." The response came quickly. "She wants to know if you like pizza. Friday night tradition at our place. You're invited. No pressure, just putting it out there." Caroline looked at her calendar. She had a dinner with investors Friday, the kind of obligation she never canceled, the kind that used to matter more than anything. She texted her assistant, "Reschedule Friday dinner, something came up." Then to Daniel, "I'd love to. What can I bring?" "Just yourself. Mia's already planning what games you'll play." Friday evening found Caroline pulling up to a modest duplex in a neighborhood where kids still played in the streets and neighbors knew each other's names. She'd changed out of her work clothes into jeans and a sweater, feeling simultaneously overdressed and underprepared. Mia answered the door before she could knock, launching into a story about school while pulling her inside. The duplex was small but warm, decorated with Mia's artwork and photos, and the kind of lived-in comfort that comes from actual living. It smelled like pizza and home. Daniel emerged from the kitchen with flour on his shirt and an apologetic smile. "She's been at the window for 20 minutes waiting for you." They ate pizza at a table meant for two, squeezing in a third chair. They played board games Mia won through a combination of luck and creative rule interpretation. They watched Caroline try and fail to do a cartwheel in the backyard while Mia demonstrated proper technique. They talked about everything and nothing. Mia's upcoming school play, Daniel's latest project, Caroline's terrible childhood attempts at cooking. At some point during the evening, while Mia was showing Caroline her room, Daniel stood in the doorway watching them. Mia was explaining her stuffed animal collection with the gravity of a museum curator, and Caroline was listening like it was the most important presentation she'd ever heard. "She doesn't usually warm up to people this fast," Daniel said quietly. Caroline looked at him. "Neither do I. And yet here we are. Here we are." There was something in the air between them, something neither was ready to name, but it felt like a beginning. The weeks that followed developed their own rhythm. Caroline found herself making excuses to leave the office earlier, to take Friday evenings off, to be available when Daniel texted about Mia's soccer games or school events. She attended the birthday party and met Daniel's friends and Mia's classmates, and slowly began to build something she'd never had: a community, a place, people who knew her as more than her job title. Daniel was careful never to push, never to assume, never to take her presence for granted. But she noticed things. The way he listened when she talked about work stress, the way he included her in decisions about weekend plans, the way he looked at her when Mia wasn't watching, like he was trying to figure out how this had happened and whether it was real. One Saturday, while Mia was at a friend's house, Daniel invited Caroline to help with a project, building a bookshelf for Mia's room. They worked in his garage, measuring and cutting and sanding, and Caroline discovered she liked the physical nature of the work, the way something took shape under her hands. "Can I ask you something?" Daniel said while they worked. "Of course." "Why did you really come that night to the school?" Caroline set down her sandpaper. She'd been expecting this question for weeks. "Honestly, I don't know. I was going to throw the invitation away, but something about the way Mia looked at me, like she knew something I didn't, like she could see how empty everything was." She paused. "I think I came because someone noticed me. Not Caroline Mitchell, the CEO, but me, and I'd forgotten what that felt like." Daniel nodded slowly. "Mia has this theory that some people forget how to be around other people, that they get so good at being alone, they forget they don't have to be. She might be onto something. She usually is." He moved closer, his shoulder brushing hers. "For what it's worth, I'm glad she saw you. I'm glad you came. I'm glad you keep coming." Caroline felt her breath catch. "Me too." They stood there in the quiet garage, sawdust in the air and possibility between them. Daniel's hand found hers, rough with calluses and completely sure. "I know this is complicated," he said. "Our lives are really different. You have this whole world I don't understand, and I have Mia to think about. And we're both probably terrible at this." "Daniel." "Yeah? Stop talking." She kissed him. It was soft and careful and terrifying in the best way. When they pulled apart, Daniel was smiling. "So that's how you make decisions in the business world. Just go for it." Caroline laughed. "Sometimes the best strategy is the simple one." Mia's reaction when she found out they were officially dating, her words, was predictable. She jumped up and down, announced they were going to be a real family, and immediately started planning a wedding Caroline and Daniel hadn't discussed. Daniel gently explained that grown-ups moved slower than that, but Mia just patted his hand and said, "It's okay, Daddy, I can wait." The integration of their lives was gradual but steady. Caroline started keeping clothes at Daniel's place. Daniel learned to navigate Caroline's world of business dinners and networking events, uncomfortable in a suit, but steady beside her. Mia became a fixture in Caroline's life, texting her drawings and questions and proclamations of love with the casual certainty of a child who decided they belonged together. There were challenges. Caroline's board raised eyebrows at her new priorities. Daniel's ex-wife made a rare appearance and had opinions about her daughter spending time with someone so high profile. Caroline's house, too big, too empty, too much a monument to isolation, needed to be reconsidered. But there were also moments of startling clarity. Like the morning Caroline woke up in Daniel's bed to find Mia had snuck in and was sleeping between them, one small hand on each of their shoulders. Like the evening Daniel showed up at her office with dinner because he'd noticed she'd been working too much. Like the afternoon Mia asked Caroline to come to career day because, "My dad builds houses, but you build the future, and that's cool too." 6 months after that rainy afternoon in Morrison's cafe, Caroline stood in Daniel's backyard watching him teach Mia to use a level while they built a garden box together. The evening sun was golden, the air warm, the sounds of the neighborhood settling into dinner hour. She thought about the blue box, about the invitation, about a child who'd seen straight through her defenses to the loneliness underneath. She thought about what her life had been, successful but solitary, impressive but empty, and she thought about what it was becoming, smaller in some ways, but infinitely larger in others. Daniel caught her eye and smiled, that quiet smile that meant he knew what she was thinking. Mia waved, dirt on her face and pride in her eyes. Caroline waved back. This was what Mia had known that rainy afternoon. This was what she'd needed. Not an invitation to an event, but an invitation back into life, back into messiness and connection, and the beautiful ordinary chaos of being part of something bigger than herself. She walked across the grass and knelt beside Mia, taking the level when offered, listening to instructions delivered with 6-year-old authority. Daniel's hand rested briefly on her shoulder, grounding and sure. The garden box took shape slowly, board by board, measurement by measurement. Not perfect but sturdy, not impressive but real. Built by hand, built together, built to last. Later, after Mia was in bed and Caroline and Daniel sat on the porch with wine and the comfortable silence of people who'd learned each other's rhythms, Caroline pulled out her phone. She scrolled back to that first photo Daniel had sent, Mia grinning in the wood chips. "What are you thinking about?" Daniel asked. "That your daughter is remarkably smart. Tell me something I don't know." Caroline leaned against his shoulder. "I was thinking about throwing that invitation away, about how close I came to not showing up that night. But you did show up, because a 6-year-old saw something I couldn't see, that I was lonely, that I needed people, that success doesn't mean anything if you're going through it alone." Daniel turned to look at her fully. "And now? Now I know what I was missing. Now I understand what she meant." Caroline paused, choosing her words carefully. "She said I'd need it that night, the invitation. But I've needed it every night since. I've needed this, you, her, this life we're building. We're glad you're here. So am I." They sat together as the stars came out, as the neighborhood quieted, as another ordinary evening became something worth holding on to. Inside, in her small room, Mia slept with Caroline's business card taped to her wall next to drawings and photos and all the things a child treasures. Tomorrow, Caroline would go back to running a company. Tomorrow, Daniel would go back to building homes for other people. Tomorrow, Mia would go back to school and homework and the everyday adventures of childhood. But tonight, they were here together, a family assembled from loneliness and chance, and one child's absolute certainty that people belong together, that love could be simple, that sometimes the answer to sadness was just showing up. Caroline kept the blue box on her dresser, the ribbon slightly faded now. Inside, the invitation to an elementary school event that had changed everything. A reminder that the most important moments often come in small packages, delivered by small hands, from people brave enough to see what others miss. "You'll need this tonight," Mia had said. She'd been right. And Caroline had needed every night since.